Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So this time we are coming back to Branded Despia. Oh my gosh, I definitely meant to get to this deck a lot sooner than I did. It is almost the end of the season, and I tend to cover this deck a little bit closer to the beginning. But this time around, I just, with the release of Cartesia and Rescue Ace and also Gishki Sprite, like a lot of relevant stuff in that selection pack that needed to be covered, and then getting ready for the MCS, when that got a surprise announced, it just didn't necessarily work out that I had the time before now. But we're here, we made it, and we did get in our Branded Despia games with a little bit of a struggle. As anyone who was tuning into the stream a few days ago on Tuesday, during that stream, I actually played the games that we're going to see here for the video, and it was a struggle. So I was trying to complete my Duelist Cup missions, right? The ones that we got, and also the ones that I had left over from the first wave of them. But I'm already at DL level max, so I was like, that's fine. I'll just play in the Duelist Cup anyway. We'll rock out these missions, and we'll get in some Branded Despia games. But I was also reminded of why I don't like getting to max rank, like Master 1, very, very quickly in a season. Because once you hit max rank, it becomes so difficult to get quality games of Yu-Gi-Oh! That are actually worth watching in a video. This is a pretty uniquely content creator problem in particular, but like, so many games during the stream, I would when I would actually win the coin flip and have a decent hand, I would normal summon Aluber and my opponent would immediately concede. And it's like, well, that's not going to make it very easy to get games for a video now, is it? But anyway. It was just kind of funny. I've actually talked about this in videos before, but I think this was the first time a lot of people actually witnessed my struggle. So I also struggled a little bit because I gotta be honest, Branded Despia, I've said this before and I'll say it again, not one of the Master Duel decks that I am best with, to be honest. It is one of the meta decks I would say I am the least confident in playing. So you might not necessarily see optimal play, but I promise I tried my best. Anyway, talking about the list itself here, one actually very important addition that Branded Despia did get with the recent selection pack is the Triple Tactics Thrust. This card obviously being a pretty widespread staple across the format in general, but particularly in Branded Despia, we just so happen to have a normal spell card that is particularly worth searching in this deck. Of course, I am talking about none other than Branded Fusion. Being able to have even more ways to search that is, of course, very, very good for a deck like this. And we do also have a good normal trap card to get as well if we end up using the Thrust on turn 1 and our opponent hasn't summoned a monster to our field or something, right? So having the Branded Banishment in general is obviously good. It's just a good card, but being able to have the option to get it off the Thrust is nice, but again, we're most often going for Branded Fusion. In fact, I had games where I would open Aluber and Thrust going second, and I would still just use Aluber to grab the, the Branded Lost, and then I just use Thrust to get the Fusion, because it is nice to be able to have that additional search for the Lost. I think it's worth it, and I just think it's overall worth it to play 3 Thrusts in this deck to get the Branded Fusion. Again, even if you already have the Aluber, you'll probably use the Thrust to just get the Branded Fusion anyway. We do actually have another target for it, though, in Herald of the Abyss. I included this because for a few reasons. One, I've been meaning to try out Herald of the Abyss in a deck that's rocking Thrust, and I figured as long as we're playing a deck that's got 3 of them, it's the perfect opportunity to test out the Herald. But not only that, but I can also see how this deck might have a bit of a time outing an Expertly Nor, right? That's already on the field and already unaffected. So having outs to Towers monsters like that in the form of Herald of the Abyss, which once again is also searchable off of the Triple Tactics Thrust, just seemed like a pretty good inclusion for the deck. Of course, it's not the only good going second spell we have. Being a fusion-based deck, we are rocking a playset of Super Poly, which being a quick play is not searchable by Thrust, but Super Poly, I don't know. I ran into a lot of Cartesia decks in particular during this stream, and Super Polymerization is just not good against Cartesia at all. Honestly, not even a little bit. The only time you can even really hope to use it, period, not even just the only time it's good, but the only time you can even activate this card is if they have Riseheart and Shangri-Ira in play, because they're both fire. And then you can use that to summon Mudragon. But Mudragon and Garura both need the monsters to have the same attributes, and Cartesia kind of infamously, their cards do not share attributes. They're like all over the place. They're all different. So, yeah, it's I don't know if I'd actually play 3. Like, obviously, it's a really, really good card in just about any other matchup. Pearly, it might be a little bit hard to use this card against them, but I don't know. It's interesting. So I also actually had Ash Blossoms in this build initially, and you might see them in some of the games, because I did test for them a little bit during this playtest session, but I actually took the Ash Blossoms out for the Herald, I think was one of the cards, yes, as well as Ad Libitum and Branded in red. And the reason I took Ash Blossoms out is because I think those other cards, the other 3 cards I mentioned, were better in this deck. Ash Blossom, kind of similar to Super Poly, is a little bit weird to use against decks like Cartesia and Pearly. So, I don't know. I don't think that they are necessary, the Ash Blossoms, for this deck in particular. In fact, if you look at Branded Despia's like deck breakdown on Master Duel meta, the deck often plays without Ash Blossoms more so than they do. But it's just interesting how in this meta in particular, Ash Blossom just ends up being a little bit weird against a lot of the top decks. Of course, it's still pretty good against this deck, having one very central card that Ash Blossom can negate. But to be fair, Branded Despia, it's not like it's a tier 1 deck or anything. It is, I think, though, a tier 2 deck. I think it's a pretty solid tier 2 deck in this meta. So, alright, let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we'll see some gameplay. So we are on 1 Despain Tragedy, 3 Maxx, 3 Fallen of Albaz, 2 Aluber the Jester of Despia, 2 Tri-Brigade Mercourier, 1 Springans Kitt, 1 Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, 2 Bystial Saronir, 1 Albion the Shrouded Dragon, 1 Ad Libitum of Despia, 1 the Bystial Lubellion, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Gold Sarcophagus, 1 Herald of the Abyss. We have 3 Fusion Deployment, 1 Branded in White, 1 Branded Fusion, 3 Triple Tactics Thrust, 1 Branded Lost, 3 Super Polymerization, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Branded Opening, 1 Branded in Red, 1 Branded Banishment, and then 1 Branded Retribution. It's going to do it for our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Garura, Wings of Restorant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragostepelia, 1 Brigand the Glory Dragon, 1 Sprind the Iron Dash Dragon, 2 Albion the Branded Dragon, 1 Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, 2 Mirrorjade the Iceblade Dragon, 1 Lubellion the Searing Dragon, 1 Granguignol the Dusk Dragon, 1 Rindabrum the Striking Dragon, 1 Guardian Chimera, and then 1 Despian Proskenion. That'll do it for our list. Let's see some gameplay. Alright, just this video and I think one more of Duelist Cup games, and I'll actually be able to tell you what decks I'm playing against as I go into the duel. I wonder if this will be one of our cash opponents. Again, we faced a lot of cash here, I just don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so this hand. I'm going to fire off Branded Opening during the draw phase to special summon the Aluber here, adding the Branded Fusion before moving into the main phase, and we'll activate said Branded Fusion. Opponent does have an Ash Blossom for it, though, so like I mentioned in the deck profile, like I think everybody knows, Ash Blossom, although, like I said earlier, it's a little bit weird to actually use against a lot of decks in this meta. This is one deck where it's very straightforward to use it. They just use it on the Branded Fusion, and we often have a hard time bouncing back, and it might seem like at a glance this hand has a bit of a time bouncing back, but we'll actually be relatively fine here. I'm going to use Fusion Deployment to grab Cartesia. Now I can use Blazing Cartesia to fuse it with the Despain Tragedy that's in my hand, and then I can make the Granguignol the Dusk Dragon. Now I'll activate the Tragedy's effect as well as the Granguignols. Granguignol is going to dump off the Albion to get me another search, and then I'll use the Tragedy to add an Aluber for the follow-up turn. And yeah, I mean, we don't have like quite as much of an inboard as we would normally, but still, you know, we're going to get the Albion search. I'll use that for Branded in Red here because I have the Tragedy in my yard. So we have the Granguignol that threatens to go into another card. We have the Branded in Red that threatens to go into the Guardian Chimera. And of course, we have the Maxx in hand, and we also have the backup Aluber as well. There's also a good amount of hands. This wasn't one of them. I don't think I could have done this anyway, but there's a good amount of hands where even if you get your Branded Fusion ashed, but if you have Fusion Deployment or just access to Cartesia in general, right? Like if you have Albaz, you can actually just fuse the Cartesia with the Albaz to make the Albion, and then you can pretty much just go ahead and set up your regular line anyway, as if you had not get hit by the Ash Blossom. So Yeah, the 3 fusion deployment for the one Cartesia might seem a little bit strange, but this is one of the reasons why I do like playing 3 fusion deployment. If your Branded Fusion gets hit with an Ash Blossom, it just allows you to have follow-up plays a lot more easily than you might otherwise. But oh, and then of course we get to add back the Cartesia during the end phase as well, so good stuff, good stuff. Let's see what our opponent is going to be on here. They're going to start with an Imperm on the Granguignol. Oh, I've chained the Maxx here. I should have done this during the draw phase, but I like to Maxx during the draw phase, honestly, because while it doesn't play around Troll Tactics Thrust, it does still play around the talents. Oh, that's right, we're up against Virtual World here. And I actually already made a very critical misplay that I want to talk about here. That was not activating the Branded Red as soon as this Virtual World gate got set up on the field. It's been so long since I've played against this deck, even though we did just see Asteria play this deck earlier this week in the viewer special on Monday, but it's been so long since I played against this deck that I forgot the most crucial choke point, which is popping or getting rid of the continuous trap card as early as possible. That makes it a lot more awkward for them to set up with stuff like My Hime and the other Virtual World monsters, but here I just totally didn't even think about it until the effect had already resolved, so I'm like, you know what? At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just let it go. Also, another huge misplay I made. I fired off the Granguignol even though it got negated. I just completely forgot that it got impermed, so that was a misplay on my part too. But they are under Maxi, so they do have to play through that. And we do still have the Branded in red. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and wait for them to summon something a little bit more threatening before I pop off and go into the Guardian Chimera. Alright, here looks like they are going to overlay into the Cicada King. Now, that does threaten to potentially negate the monster effect, but one thing to note is that Cicada King's effect activates when a monster on the field activates his effect, so with some proper chain linking with the Despain Tragedy, or actually no, not with the Tragedy, with the Ad Libitum, we can manage to get around this. I'm actually glad that I waited too with the Branded Red until I drew into the Ad Libitum, because it will allow me to chain block around the Cicada King. So they're also going to synchro for the Vermilion Dragon Mech, and I was going to wait for the Dragon Mech to pop something here, but looks like that is not going to be the case. Now they're going for the Roshi. Okay, here's where I'm going to use the Branded Red, because I recognize what this is. The Roshi and the Kirin here, these are going to allow them to go for the Ultimaya Zulkin, which would be pretty annoying if it hit the field. So I'm going to use my Branded in red now, and also I'm fine using it now because these other things they've made, the Cicada King and the Dragon Mech, I don't feel threatened by these cards at all, like not even a little bit. So Branded in red will wheel back the Tragedy. I'll fuse the Ad Libitum Tragedy and Aluber in order to summon that Guardian Chimera. I'm going to use Guardian Chimera as Chainlink 1. Ad Libitum targeting the Granguignol is going to be Chainlink 2. And again, the Cicada King actually cannot chain here to negate the Guardian Chimera, because the condition for it to activate is when a monster on the field activates its effects. And the last thing to happen in this Chainlink was not a monster on the field activating its effect. It was a monster that has been banished activating its effect. Therefore, Cicada King can't meet that condition and therefore cannot activate. Alright, Ad Libitum bringing back that Granguignol, and then Guardian Chimera getting me the draws, and before I can even figure out what exactly I want to pop, which is just going to be one of the cards that is going into the Ultimate Zulkin, my opponent's going to go ahead and concede, because now they know I can stop their Zulkin, they know their Cicada King didn't go through, and they don't have a way to battle over the defense mode Guardian Chimera. Well, they could pop it, but like they definitely do not have anywhere near lethal, and of course I have an immense number of Maxx draws to back me up for my next turn. So there is that first duel against Virtual World. Let's go ahead and see the next game here. Alright, so this game, I actually remember that we faced against a couple of pretty unique decks, and I'm pretty sure this game was against one of them. I just don't remember which one off the top of my head, but, you know, being in DL level max, you can expect that people are going to bring some pretty spicy stuff they've been cooking up. Oh, I remember this game now. Okay, so I want to talk about my opening hand for a second. Oh my god, could you imagine if I'd gotten to go first with this hand? It would just be Jover. This hand is so good. Having the Thrust going second is definitely not too shabby either, though. Not at all. Alright, Madam Spider is getting normal summon and adding the Dangerous Gabu here. Opponent is going to activate Pearly Delicious Memory, revealing themselves to be a Pearly Punk deck. Again, one of the more unique lists I've run into playing the DL level Maxx games, but... Oh, that was the other thing, too, that was weird. They picked 3 different cards off of my friend. I have no idea why. Unless you only play 1 Yeep and already have, like, the other pretty memories in hand. But if what you want is Sapie, why wouldn't you just... I have no idea what's going on with this My Friend reveal. I really don't have a clue. In any case, though, they are able to go into the Plump, and Plump will go ahead and activate the effect to attach that Small World in their graveyard. Oh my god. Setting 3 and then passing. Small World being what they they discarded, rather, for the Delicious Memory. So, yeah, I know one of these face-down cards is going to be Yeep. I don't know that for sure, but I have to imagine one of the face-down cards is going to be Yeep. That said, Yeep only grants a 4 material Plump here, not a 5 material, so it will not be unaffected by activated effects. Well, to be fair, the opponent can just use this Plump effect on, you know, some of my spell and trap cards during my turn, but I'm going to start with the fusion deployment for the Albaz, activating the Albaz effect, and that will force this Plump plus Yeep to go ahead and proc here. Oh no, there's the Gabu as well. I was trying to force the Gabu too. I'm actually really surprised my opponent activated Gabu here. They could have saved the monster negate if they had gone into the Noir with the Yeep. Like, they could have done Yeep Chainlink 1, Plump Chainlink 2. Yes, and then, yeah, that would have, they wouldn't have had to use the monster negate there. So I'm going to roll some of the Aluber and activate the Brand Diffusion. Here comes the Yeep to go for the Noir. And I think this was before I had Herald in the deck, though. This game, I think, was the reason I ended up adding Herald of the Abyss, because I was still on the Ash Blossoms here. So if you're wondering, Hex, why don't you just thrust for that Herald you added for this exact situation? Well, I mean, granted, this was the one game that pushed me over the edge to adding it. I was already thinking about it, but this was definitely the game that made me finally decide to do it. Now here, this is going to be an interesting decision for my opponent. They actually fire off all 3 Noir effects here to spin back all of my stuff. I'm guessing it's because I'm activating the fusion effect right now, but I don't really know why they bother doing this, honestly. Because I don't know what I could have summoned that would have mattered to an unaffected Noir here, right? Yeah, I have to get Branded White off of Thrust instead. We do get to Gold Sarc here. I'm going to Gold Sarc for the Mercourier, and then I can use Mercourier to add an Albaz, and that will actually allow me to use this Branded White. But unfortunately, I don't have, like... I mean, I guess I fuse it with the Masquerade to make the Mirrorjade, which is, like, fine. But unfortunately, the My Friend... This stupid My Friend Pearly, like, caused so many issues here, right? Because I can't just banish the Noir, because then my opponent gets to add a bunch of stuff off the My Friend. So, like, now I just kind of have to hope they don't really have too much gas in their hand, but of course they get to use the My Friend effect. Now revealing 3 pretty. This is why I don't understand my opponent's first reveal off the My Friend. Like, why did they reveal 3 different cards the first time, and then 3 pretty the second? I don't understand this. I really don't get it, but... Things obviously not looking great for me. Even though I did not proc the Noir effect, my opponent is still absolutely just burying me in card advantage. I'm making Herald of the Arclight too, sinking a Punk Tuner with a Pearly for 4, sinking for 4 for the Herald, so, you know. I'll bring back the Masquerade here because, I don't know, why not? And now the Pearlily is going into the Beauty right off of the Pretty memory. Beauty does get to attach the Mirrorjade. I'll go ahead and fire the Mirrorjade off here. Of course, I did expect it to get negated, but I was like, maybe there's a world where they misclick and don't, and I can banish the Herald, but yeah. Like I said, things decidedly just not looking great. We do get the Albion Search, although the opponent is going to use the Herald to negate that. I'm actually mostly fine with that, to be honest. And, oh yeah, they actually get to add a ritual monster off the Herald. They add the Soravis, although, You might have seen a Magician Souls get excavated earlier, so they do also play the Illusion of Chaos. This Albaz would actually have not been a bad top deck at all if I had had a card to discard. But even that would have been lethal, right? Because, yeah, that would have been like 5,500 damage, and my opponent still would have been at 1,000. It's just so awkward. Yeah, there's the Illusion of Chaos adding the Magician Souls. Here's the My Friend for, again, 3 different cards. I don't understand it. I really don't understand that at all. I don't understand why you would ever My Friend for 3 different things. Like, I don't know. Whatever. But Yeep is activating. Here's the Sleepy. Beauty is going to attach that. It's pretty Jover for me at this point. Like, I do get to resolve the Gold Sarc, which I don't have Gold Sarc in there to actually add cards. But I do get to resolve that on this upcoming turn, which is kind of cute. Yeah, Branded Retribution, definitely not going to be the draw that does it for me here. Expertly Noir is drawing a card. I'm just going to have to set Retribution and pass. I'm just going to throw it in fast forward, because at this point, I'm just going to ultimately end up losing this duel. But I wanted to showcase this game just to show, like, one, not only the fact that my opponent was on Punk Pearly of all this, and synced for the Herald with a Punk Tuner and a Pearly monster, but two, I will say that if I had had that Herald, which I did end up adding to my build, this game probably would have gone a lot differently, and probably would have had a decent shot of going in my favor. Because, I don't know, if the Herald doesn't proc the My Friend, does it? Because the opponent is the one making the card leave the field? Although, it is still my card that is doing it. I don't know. I actually have no idea how that would ultimately pan out, but... Oh yeah, and then here they actually summon the Dark Magician, which they are playing in their deck to go with their Magician Souls package. Wild stuff, but... Yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for that game. We do still have a couple more to look at. Let's go straight into the next duel here. So this next duel, I do actually remember the deck, because I know the person we're playing against. We're playing against Toadette. Toadette, or Best Toadette, if you're on the Discord, you've seen them around. You've probably seen her in... I'm sure I've showed her in a viewer special at some point, but while I was streaming, she actually queued up into Duelist Cup to see if we actually would end up facing each other, and we did, which is funny. So she's on a 60-card Labyrinth list. Thankfully for me, she just did not open that great, so I'm going to have pretty much free reign to do, hopefully, whatever I want here. I do have the Called By for some potential hand trap disruption. Gonna use the Mercourier to search the kit, and then the kit to get the Branded Fusion. She did have the Ash Blossom, but thankfully we had the Called By here. Although I think... no, that's a different game I was thinking of. But no, I was gonna say, if even if she had the negate for the Called By here, I still could have used Fusion Deployment for Cartesia and made Albion and gone for my lines anyway, so... To be fair, that Ash Blossom, had it resolved, would still have not been enough to necessarily stop us here. Alright, I'm going to use Albion to fuse the Albaz in my hand with the one in my yard in order to make the Lubellion. Going to end up using Lubellion's effect, sending the Despain Tragedy to make the Mirrorjade with the Albaz. And then I'm going to use the Fusion Deployment for the Cartesia. And I'm just going to move to Battle Phase and try to swing in for lethal, but Toad does have a Dogmatic Punishment, sending the Entes, which will go ahead and take care of a good bit of our board. So we're not going to OTK, but we do still leave Toadette in a pretty precarious position here. We've got the Lubellion for the loss, the Despian Tragedy. I'll go ahead and banish that to reset the Branded Fusion for my next turn, and end phase, I'll use Albion for... I ultimately decided to get Branded Retribution here because once we proc Mirrorjade's effect, that'll be another fusion monster in our yard, and then we can use Retribution potentially against like a welcome card if that gets top decked here. Alright, Toad topping into the Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis. So this is her 60-card Dogmatica Lab build, but I'm going to go ahead and use the Mirrorjade to banish the Fleur-de-Lis, and again, it just does not seem like she opened that great of a hand, unfortunately, and that's going to be just about all she wrote. So yeah, I'm just going to switch to attack mode, move to battle phase, and thankfully didn't have too much going on here. So that duel was actually a fairly straightforward one, even though it was 4 turns. Unfortunately, Toda did not open very well. But I do want to point out, much like I did in the first game, that again, even if that Ash Blossom had resolved, if we didn't have Called By and our Branded Fusion got negated, in this game in particular, we could use the fusion deployment for the Cartesia, fuse it with the Albaz, go for Albion, and still have plays. So, because I've had people ask, like, are 3 fusion deployment really necessary? And you can definitely get away with 2 or even 1 if you really wanted to, but I like 3. And these games, I think, are good examples of why having 3 can be very good. We do have one more duel to watch, so let's go straight into that here. All right, last duel for this video. What was the other deck? Because this was the other game where I faced against just a pretty wild, wacky kind of deck. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but we're going to be going second yet again. I have Albaz and Super Poly, so that should hopefully help going second. Opponent's going to start with an X-Drav, so I was initially thinking like Labyrinth, right? Oh, it's Crystal Beast. That's what it is. I faced off against Crystal Beast. They're going to use Bond to set up the Rainbow Dragon as well as add the Sapphire Pegasus, summoning another Sapphire Pegasus with the Rainbow Dragon F. That is going to be negated, but they do still get to activate the Rainbow Bridge to get another normal summon for another Pegasus to set up the third Pegasus. Getting the Crystal Miracle and setting, I imagine, that along with another card. What does the Miracle do again? Destroy Crystal Beast card to control. Oh, it's an Omni Negate counter trap. Good, good, good. So, yeah, this board is definitely pretty scary, especially because they do get a bounce with the continuous spell as well. So, they also didn't leave me with enough stuff to really Super Poly. So, oh, and then Crystal Conclave coming up here as well. That also has the potential to bounce alongside the Rainbow Bridge's last effect here. And that's also on top of the Omni Negate Crystal Miracle. So, yeah, pretty brutal. Even though, again, we have the Albaz and the Super Poly, I thought maybe it would be fine going second. Crystal Beast rolling up to shut us down in that regard. I'm going to use the Gold Sarc to banish the Mercourier. That'll allow me to add the Cartesia, but the Droll and Lockbird is honestly really what's going to shut us down here. That was devastating, that Droll and Lockbird. It's funny, Droll and Lock is like, it's usually pretty good against Branded Fusion, unless their first search is just for the Branded Fusion, but this was definitely one of those games where the Droll was very, very good, so. Alright, looks like they're adding Awakening of the Crystal Lord? What was that card called? Ultimates. Awakening of the Crystal Ultimates. Oh, and here's it revealed themselves to be a Kashira Crystal Beast deck in particular. And I was like, oh my god, they just have a full cash combo here? Like, that's really, really scary. Oh no, they're going straight for the Arise Heart, that's right. And then, yeah, at this point, I'm like, you know, if they're just gonna sit on Arise Heart, like, there's probably not too much I can do. Oh, no, that's right. Because here they get to use Ruby Carbuncle and summon all 3 of these Sapphire Pegasus. And then just swing in for lethal. Yeah, it's not even going to be a matter of, like... Because I was trying to remember how this duel ended. I was trying to remember if I just, like, end up scooping under the Arise Heart Pass. And I was like, I don't feel like I did that, though. No, that's right. They just OTK'd me with the Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus that were in their spell trap zone. So... yeah, normally I don't show multiple losses per video because I like to show wins to give a better idea of what the deck can do, but I had such a time getting even this number of games, and, you know, both these losses were to some pretty unique strategies, so I figured it was worth showing them, but that'll go ahead and do it for this deck profile. Again, yeah, I really meant to rock this one out a lot sooner, as well as another one we're going to be seeing this week as well, but... between the MCS and the new pack release and also IRL stuff, it's just been so busy in my world lately. But that'll go ahead and do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions I offer offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.